There are two tales waiting for you, told one after the other by an odd set of two. So prepare yourself, dear one, because this is Drops of Darkness.
Hello, I'm Anodyne Vaughn, and welcome to our show. We are back to new stories after 2 compilation episodes, and we're starting back off with a bang. If this is your first time listening, each week we give you a new original dark fiction story, written and narrated by yours truly, paired with a true paranormal experience selected by my co-host and co-narrator, Cameron Helkuik. For today, I wanted to do something a little different than my usual style of storytelling, and I think this story, which is titled Cost of Survival, does just that. Then Cameron's got a chilling true story about a child's experience with a ghost and prior resident of their home. As always, thank you for listening, and if you enjoy what we do, it would be great if you could share the show, give us a follow, and maybe even leave us a review. Alright, enough of all that. Stranger and someone are waiting. I am Stranger, and I tell only fantasies. Whenever your world has a grip on your throat, I am there, waiting to unleash the monsters that sleep in my mind, so that they may remind you that you have sharp teeth and claws of your own. The corridor, sporadically lit. The air, stale, sour, and unchanging. 2 survivors make their way forward, one dragged by the foot by the other. Behind them, an unbroken trail of blood turns to jelly on the cold floor. They wear matching uniforms, the ones they woke up in, but that is where their sameness ends. Almost. They are both covered in blood, but only one is soaked in their own. Mostly their own. One is quite large, and one is smaller than most. Doorless rooms line the corridor. Some of them lit, none of them empty. The bodies inside, dressed in uniforms much nicer than theirs, were left stacked and tallied. The 2 have come so far, and they're almost at the end. And everything behind them is dead quiet. The small one, Theo, doesn't have much more blood left to bleed, and the large one, Tobias, doesn't know how much longer he can keep pulling and walking and searching. He could stop. He could try with stiff, dirty fingers to staunch Theo's bleeding, but they were so close. There are others. There has to be. Probably not many by now, but that doesn't matter. The instructions were clear. Tobias looks down at the red lines on his arm. He recounts the tallies under his breath. Behind him, Theo tries to say something. Save your breath, or your blood, whatever that was. Sounded wet, says Tobias. As they slid face up, all Theo could do was choke on the thick puddle that pooled at the back of their throat. Shh. Tobias stopped. They'd reached a fork in the narrow corridor. 2 hallways stretch out before them, and they are the same. Almost the same. If you want to live, die quieter, he says. Over Theo's strained gurgles, Tobias waits, and he listens. The fluorescent lights, putrid and yellow, they flicker and whine. Theo, finally able to push themselves onto their side, coughs up the coagulated blob stuck in their airway. along with a tooth and half of a finger. "Dickhead," says Theo, slumping back against the floor. Tobias responds by tightening his grip around Theo's broken ankle. He chooses the hall on the left. The bone sticking out from Theo's skin scrapes against his sticky palm. But even as heavy as his sibling's dead weight is, Tobias's feet shuffle faster because the voices grow louder. "Almost there, we're so close," says Tobias, glancing again down at his arm. The red tally marks went from the pit of his elbow to nearly his wrist. The light that poured from the door at the end of the hall looks warm and bright. The air is crisp and clean. Tobias finally drags Theo into that room. The people inside, they didn't know there was anyone else down there with them. Too far to hear the screams. They made such a fuss over the blood. Tobias looks around. None of these people woke up chained to the wall by their feet, with nothing but a hammer and a choice. Well, almost nothing. Tobias and Theo also had their instructions, written in red on the wall. Instructions on what they had to do to survive. But these walls were bare. Tobias counts. "This is it, we're going to make it, Theo," he says with relief in his voice. "Theo? How many?" Tobias looks down at his sibling and follows their gaze into the corner where someone is trying to hide. Someone even smaller than Theo. Much smaller. 100, says Tobias. "I know that. How many do we have left?" Tobias recounts the red tally marks on his arm, just to be sure, hoping maybe he miscounted before, but knowing he didn't. The first 10 or so had been easy, corralled in the room next to theirs in a cage, and all they had to do was press a button to kill them. But the further they went, the harder it got. They started to fight back. They started to beg, as if Tobias and Theo were the ones that put them all down there like rats and cheese in a maze. And not just the rats. 3, he admits at last. 3 left, and we're free. Theo slips their ankle from their brother's fist and pulls themselves upright with his help. From their tattered uniform, they pull out the knife from the room before last, still slick with blood that was mostly not theirs. Theo looks at each of the people in the last room, knowing and hating that they really were about to make it. Hello, everyone. In between stories, we like to highlight a cause that is worth our collective attention. For May and Mental Health Awareness Month, we decided to highlight the National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI is dedicated to improving the lives of those affected by mental illness through advocacy, education, and support. With their programs and resources, they're breaking the stigma and providing hope to millions. You can find out more and donate at www.nami.org or from the link on our website at dropsofdarkness.com. And now, back into the shadows we go.
I am someone, and I tell only truth. Whenever something slithers through the barrier between worlds, I am there. Not to stop them, but to watch them and remind you of the countless terrors your kind has survived, all on their own. This story was submitted by Cryptic Kayla, whose Reddit handle is listed in the episode's description. When I was a kid, my family and I lived in a haunted house on the outskirts of town. At first, everything seemed perfectly normal. But it didn't take long for strange things to start happening. One night, I was in the living room watching TV with my dad when I got up to use the bathroom and saw the ghostly figure of a little boy standing at the end of the hallway. He looked sad, but also as if he was trying to communicate something to me. Suddenly, he gestured for me to follow him into the bathroom. I wasn't sure if I should go, but I felt drawn to the boy. So I followed him down the hallway and into the bathroom. Once I was inside, I no longer saw him, but I felt an eerie feeling wash over me. Something compelled me to look into the bathtub, and as I pulled back the shower curtain, I saw the little boy lying in the tub, his eyes and mouth wide open as if he were struggling to breathe. I was terrified and ran back down the hall to my dad. As I sat on his lap and tried to explain what I had just seen, he looked at me with a look of shock and concern. He then revealed to me that the previous owner of the house had committed a gruesome murder. The man had killed his entire family, burying his wife's body inside one of the bedroom walls and drowning his son in the very same bathtub I had just seen the little boy in. It all made sense now. The little boy's ghost had been trying to communicate the tragic events that had occurred in the house before we moved in. It was a haunting experience that stuck with me for years, and I never felt completely comfortable in that house again. Eventually, my family decided to move out of the house, and it has remained vacant ever since. The ghostly apparitions and eerie feelings that haunted our time there are a reminder that sometimes the past can come back to haunt us in ways we never could have imagined.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Drops of Darkness, which is written, voiced, and produced by Anodyne Vaughn and Cameron Helkuik. If you enjoyed your drift into the shadows, help keep the stories alive by sharing the show, leaving a review, and if you really want to earn the favor of these dark storytellers, tether yourself to their world by tapping subscribe. If you have a true paranormal story of your own that you'd like to be read by someone, you can make the offering to submissions@dropsofdarkness.com or through the form on our website. Until next time, dear one, and remember, when the darkness looks your way, hold its gaze.